Ever wondered why some people are effortlessly persuasive? What if I told you there's a simple formula to get what you want? I'm Darren Agar with over 2 decades of cybersecurity experience at the very highest levels in Fortune 500 companies. I can confidently say that the ability to influence and drive impact with key stakeholders is the most critical skill to master. It's the defining factor between holding senior management roles and reaching the top, and being a senior leader of a large international organization and being in the top 1%, where you'll be rewarded for the opportunity to build large teams and earn a 7-figure salary plus bonuses. So let's get into it. So there's a science behind influence and impact, and researchers have been studying the factors that influence us to say yes to the requests of others for over 60 years. There can be no doubt there's a science to know how to be persuaded, and there's a lot of science that is largely surprising. When making a decision, it would be nice to think that people consider all the available information in order to guide their thinking. But the reality is, it's often very different. More than ever, we need shortcuts or rules of thumb to guide our decision making. So here are 6 of those shortcuts as universals that guide human behavior. And stick around till the end, because I'm going to give you a dark psychology tip that nobody really talks about. So here's the 6: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, and consensus. Now, understanding these shortcuts and employing them with good intent can significantly increase your chances that someone will be persuaded by your request. Let's take a closer look at each one in turn. The first universal principle of influence is reciprocity. Simply put, people are obliged to give back to others a form of a behavior or gift or service that they have received first. If a friend invites you to a party, there's an obligation for you to invite them back at a future party that you are hosting. If a colleague does you a favor, then you owe that colleague a favor. In the context of social obligation, people are more likely to say yes to those that they owe. One of the best demonstrations of this principle comes from a series of studies conducted in restaurants. The last time you visited a restaurant, there's a good chance the waiter or waitress gave you a gift, probably at the same time they brought you a bill. A small token perhaps, a fortune cookie, or even a simple mint. So here's a question: does the giving of a mint have influence over how much tip you're going to leave? Most people would say no, but that mint can have a surprising difference. In the study, backed by research and science, giving diners a single mint at the end of their meal typically increased the tip by 3%. But interestingly, if the gift was doubled, 2 mints were provided, tips didn't double, they quadrupled, leading to a 14% increase in tips. Perhaps the most interesting of all is if the waiter provided 1 mint, started to walk away from the table, then paused, turned back and said, "For you nice people, here's an extra mint," the tips went through the roof. 23% increase. This effect wasn't influenced by what was given, but rather how it was given. The key to using this principle is to be the first to give and to ensure that what you give is personalized and unexpected. Scarcity. The second universal principle of persuasion is scarcity. Simply put, people want more of those things that they can have less of. When British Airways announced in 2003 that they would no longer be operating the twice-daily London-New York Concorde flight because it had become uneconomical to run, sales went through the roof the very next day. Notice that nothing had changed about the Concorde itself. It didn't fly any faster, and the service didn't suddenly get better, and the airfare didn't drop either. It had simply become a scarce resource, and as a result, people wanted more. So when it comes to effectively persuading others, using the scarcity principle, the science is clear. It's not enough to tell people about the benefits they'll gain if they choose your product or services. You'll need to point out what is unique about your proposition, what they stand to lose if they fail to consider your proposal. Authority. This third principle of influence is authority, the idea that people follow the lead of credible, knowledgeable experts. For example, are you able to persuade more of your patients to comply with a recommended exercise program if they display medical diplomas on the walls of their consulting rooms. People are more likely to give change for a parking meter to a complete stranger if that person wears a uniform rather than a casual set of clothes. What the science tells us is that it's important to signal to others what makes you credible, knowledgeable, authority before you make your influence attempt. Of course, this can present problems. You can't exactly go around telling potential customers or even your senior stakeholders how brilliant you are, but you can certainly arrange for somebody else to do that for you. In one study, a retail estate agent company increased the number of property appraisals and the number of signed contracts simply by having reception staff who introduced their agents with credentials before passing the call through. This small change led to a 20% increase in appointments and a 15% increase in signed contracts. A powerful yet costless persuasion technique. Of course, your personal brand can also serve as a personal indicator of authority. But this is why we put so much emphasis on building a personal brand. How often do you Google somebody's name when you want to learn something more about them? If your name is at the top of that search, you come across as credible. That is your personal brand. So what are you going to do to change that? Something to consider. And we'll talk about that in another post another time. Consistency. People like to be consistent with the things that they have previously said or done. In one famous study, researchers asked people to put a large, unsightly "Drive safely" sign on the front of their lawn. The majority refused. However, in a nearby neighbourhood, 4 times as many homeowners agreed to put the sign up. Why? Because 10 days earlier, they had agreed to place a small postcard in the window that signalled their support to safe driving campaign in the area. This small initial commitment led to a 400% increase in the agreement of a much bigger request. Liking. People prefer to say yes to those that they like. What causes one person to like another? Persuasion science tells us 3 factors. We like people who are similar to us, we like people who pay us compliments, and we like people who cooperate with us towards mutual goals. So that is something to think about when having a conversation with somebody and trying to persuade them. Think about those 3 things. Consensus. Especially when they are uncertain, people look to actions of others to guide their own behaviour. Hotels often ask guests to reuse towels by citing the environmental benefits. This typically results in a 35% compliance. An even greater effect was observed when the sign was room specific, stating 75% who stayed in this room reused their towels. This led to a 33% in compliance. So in conclusion, these 6 principles are reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, and consensus are small but practical and often costless changes that can lead to big difference in your ability to influence and persuade multiple stakeholders in your organization and in your personal life. Like and follow for more value, and remember to subscribe. I'd love to hear if you found this helpful. Darren, out.